Hey, welcome to the very first Comedy Here Often podcast. I'm Kevvy. I produce a lot of comedy records. I do A&R for Comedy Here Often. This is Jonathan Simkin. He's the president of 604 Records and Comedy Here Often. That's the right CEO.
What does A&R stand for?
Do you even know?
No, I don't.
Well, I'll tell you. Luckily, I'm sitting right next to you. I can bail you out on that.
Please do.
A&R stands for Artist and Repertoire. And the reason that phrase is there is because in the old days of the music business, like in the 40s and 50s, the job of the A&R guy was not just to sign bands, it was also to find material, because that was back when it was rare that artists wrote their own material. So you sign an artist, then you work with a bunch of writers to get the material.
Okay, well, off to a bad start for me. That's actually interesting. Over there we have Erica Sigurdson. She's a veteran stand-up comedian. She helps a lot of newer comedians kind of with the business side of their repertoire. And then that's Kevin Banner. He's the first comedian signed to 604 Records and Comedy Here Often.
He helps no one.
I help no one.
He helps himself.
I don't even help myself.
He broke our comedy cherry.
I did. Yeah.
I remember the conversation you and I had because I just saw him open for Bill Burr. And then I was talking about how I wanted to do
Did Sophie still say no? Let's get Banner. So I was like, hey, yeah.
That's not true. That's not how that went down. I think he played me a bunch of your stuff.
Yeah, I did.
Because, I mean, Kevvy had been producing all these comedians, and we used to sit in this very room, and he would play me stuff. And I remember I used to say, like, so what's going to happen with this record? And you'd be like, well, probably nothing. And I'd be like, what do you mean? And he said, well, I was like, what do the comedians do? And he said, well, sometimes they make CDs. They usually just put it up on iTunes. And
Give one to our mom.
That's true. Right. But I didn't even know that the big pull for a lot of comedians making a record was Sound Exchange, which is kind of what we're going to be talking about here, which is a lot of what you help newer comedians with, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that I mean, the last couple of weeks, that's been, everybody now knows about Sound Exchange, seems like, in the comedy world. So I think that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Well, how do you want to start? Should we talk about what happened over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. Did you want to kind of explain it, Erica?
Sure. I've lost all concept of date and time. So I think it was the Friday before the one that just passed. I got a call from a comic in Toronto saying our Sound Exchange residuals are gone, and that Just for Laughs was taking over Canada Laughs, effective. It was pretty much already effective because they had stopped playing our tracks. And she said, Sandra Banalini from the Canadian Association of Stand-Up Comics is putting together statements from comics about how much this will affect them. And she said, they need it right away. Can you just write something out? Now, I was in a mall in Regina, so you can imagine how little time I had on my hands. So I sent my statement right away and then left it at that until the next morning when I started getting more phone calls, emails back from Sandra and other comics. And basically, Canada Laughs, which was a serious radio station that played 100% Canadian comedians, the majority of them self-produced or produced by record companies, and provided a lot of residual income for comics, because for once in our lives, we got paid reasonably and even well for work that we had done. Right. And then every 3 months you'd get these checks, and that was going to go away because Just for Laughs was going to play 80% of their catalogs, which was galas. Now, if you factor, over the last 30 years, 8 galas a year, 7 minutes per gala, break that up into how many jokes that is. Like, where are you going to be played in this rotation?
Yeah.
So it was not only the income, but the exposure to other markets across Canada that was also going away. So It was basically major panic in the comedy world.
You were on tour also during that, right? Weren't you on the Comedy Here Often tour that just happened?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were sitting on the ferry, actually.
Going
to Victoria when I said, I got some news for you, dude.
Yeah, that was the closest I've ever come to jumping off the ferry. I was, I spun out because that's how we make our money out here.
Like true Banner fashion, he was funny about it. He
also, I was very stabby. I'm glad that I only had a fork for my ravioli because somebody
Right.
might have got lit up. It was it was terrifying. It was like one of the things that in the wake of this that a lot of people have said, I'm glad no one killed themselves over this.
Yeah.
That was a very realistic
I know.
possibility because people woke up on whatever it was, a Thursday, Friday, and we found out, oh, you might not be able to make your rent next month. And it was as though, an entire industry had been laid off. And also, we're not known for our planning ahead.
Comedians.
So yeah, comedians. So people were rightly terrified.
Maybe I'll just say something about what Sound Exchange is, because I know there might be some people listening who aren't familiar with it. So Sound Exchange is a American, I guess you'd call it a organization that collects and distributes public performance money from the public performance of master recordings. And their domain is internet performances and satellite performances. So that's why when Sirius plays music, comedy, what have you, they have to pay public performance royalties to Sound Exchange, who then pay
the artist.
The artist.
Right.
In the case of comedy, it's split up into the label share and the performer share. Now, for comedians who make their own records, they are both the label and the performer, so they get 100% of that. For comedians signed to labels like 604 or Comedy Records, the performer would get 100% of the performer share, and the label would get 100% of the label share. So just to give you an idea of like the basic idea of what Sound Exchange is.
Right. And it's actually been a great sort of like jumping off point for a lot of newer comics to get that exposure. And I think that's half of what the panic was, I guess, too, is because everyone had been relying on it for money and also for exposure. And it was kind of like something that comics strive for. They heard about it. You help different comedians sort of sign up for it. And so it was just kind of part of what could come from making a record. So I panicked because I make lots of records, and I was like, who's going to want to make a record if you can't make any Sound Exchange from it?
And I panicked because I suddenly went, well, geez, the business model just went down the toilet.
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to afford to make comedy records if we can't count on that? And just to be clear, not every record we made was getting played on Sirius.
Yeah.
But enough of them were to pay for the ones that weren't.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare. I mean, it was really a scary thing.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason the reaction, I mean, it's almost like there's been like a Me Too moment in the Canadian comedy community, because I think it brought up so many other feelings of disrespect and being taken for granted. And, it was the flashpoint, but it really, I don't think we're going to ever go back to the way it was before. Because once you're so close to losing all of that, everybody suddenly is like looking at it all in a very different light.
Well, that's what's interesting, though, is that, I mean, the format of the radio station has gone back to the way it was, right? It has a new title, though, right? It's called Just for Laughs Radio now, is it? But for how long, really?
Well, it's called Just for Laughs Radio, and there's no Just for Laughs content, so I don't...
Yeah, it's interesting. But the programming has gone back to the way it was before that, right?
Yeah. And I believe, so Ben Miner, who was really a godsend to the Canadian comedy industry, because he has, him and Paul have been programming Canada Laughs, and, they do the Serious Top Comic and all of these opportunities that have been such a godsend to so many Canadian comedians. I believe even if it was going to be the way Just for Laughs wanted it, he was still going to be programming that 20%, I think.
JFL was.
JFL was, okay.
Oh.
That was part of the big concern, was that it was essentially going to be 100. I mean, I should be careful here. That's my understanding.
Right.
That's what I heard. That's what I was told from pretty good sources.
Okay.
80% would be JFL-owned content. 20% would be non-JFL-owned content, but curated by JFL. And that's, I think, made everybody feel even more vulnerable about things.
For those of us who have never been booked at Just for Laughs, why would they want to put me on there? I'm glad that this has gone back to the way it is. Especially like a comic like myself, I have no interest in living in Los Angeles or New York. I want to live in Vancouver. This is where my life is, and this Sound Exchange money makes it possible for me to make good money in comedy and not have to live out of a suitcase or start all over again in an American town after spending, you know, $5 to $15,000 to get a visa.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's interesting that Canadian, like we have such, like I'm the same as Kevin. I've been my whole career in Vancouver. People are like, why didn't you move to Toronto, or why don't, like, I don't want to. This is my home. Like, and it's a weird thing. People are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I've stayed in Vancouver. I've built a, you know, fairly successful career.
Totally successful career.
Totally successful career. And that's what I want to do. But it's, but it's almost like, unless you know, you could move to LA and come back and headline the same club, and they'll call you, they'll bill you now as from LA. And it's like,
Ivan Decker.
Yeah. And it's like, do you not understand that Canada we have amazing comedians up here?
Yeah. And Kyle Bottom, too.
Yeah, exactly.
He wasn't listening. I just threw Kyle under the bus. But
I just realized what you did there. Yeah, so it was interesting though when I found out on Friday night. So I was doing the Snowden comedy tour, and we were all talking about it because it affected all of us. And I had this very like, well, this is a sign that, you know, we have to diversify, and like, what am I going to do? And I was like, maybe I'll buy a satellite. I have no idea how satellite radio works. I was like, maybe we have to start a new channel. And I was very positive about, okay, you got to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
And then I woke up on Saturday morning and I was so mad. Like, it was weird because I went to bed all positive, like, we could do it.
Yeah.
And then I just woke up and I was like, I am so angry at how this was done without warning. And, you know, part of me wants to think that people just didn't realize how much it affected Canadian comedians. That's
totally.
the silver lining in my little heart, where I want to say they didn't realize how much it meant, and that's why they gave it back to us.
Right.
And I will just hold on to that like a little teddy bear. But
Eric is a much better person than I am, because I think they knew that they were fucking us and they didn't care. But it is nice to have those checks coming back, huh? Right?
Well, you know, there's what they did and how they did it.
That's
the
thing.
That's kind of the rub, is that it just felt so surreptitious and like a silent coup had happened, and nobody. Next thing you know, you're like, I remember when it really struck me was, it's not really funny, but it's kind of funny. I was driving to the ferry, and I have Sirius in my car, and I put on 168. Phyllis Diller from 1993. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, and, you know, I like Phyllis Diller, but holy shit, I go to 168 to hear new independent Canadian comedy. And I was like, what is going on?
Content-wise, too, like a lot of the stuff that they were playing was topical comedy from the time. So, like, you fire up the
a lot of Lewinsky jokes.
Yeah, you hear Lewinsky jokes or like references to Pam Anderson, and it's like,
she's still alive.
Yeah, she's still relevant.
But nobody cares, I guess.
Yeah.
No, but is she,
hometown girl.
BC
We
girl.
love you. We love you, Pamela Anderson.
Okay, I take it
but
back.
it just, it was one of those things where it was like the last straw, where it's like, because we are, you know, slightly less respected than a circus clown. And then for them to just come in and be like, here's how it is. Here's the way it is. There was no.
But nobody even said that. That's part of the. It just happened.
It just was it. Here's the way it is.
Yeah, it's like suddenly you were seeing all these Just for Laughs galas, and you have to think too that some of those comedians, like, we are in a different time culturally. Like what you know, things that I'm sure we all would have said things in the year 1999 that now we're like, oh, I'm a more educated, better person, and I'm, you know, and by playing, I would think that if I had 20-year-old bits, I wouldn't be like, oh, good, that old gem is circulating, like the stuff that I first wrote.
Came out and said, Ron James. I thought was amazing, his reaction, because they were, when that brief 5 days when the switchover happened, they were playing old Ron James.
Yeah, and I tweeted
and they don't
at
play
him.
in the news station doesn't really play him, I don't think. I've never heard him on 168 before that happened. And what a mensch. I mean, I don't know the man, but for him to come out that way when it was really against his financial interests to say that, I thought, wow, what a great human being to kind of go, look, this is bad for comedy.
Yeah.
This is bad for Canadian comedy.
Yeah.
And I don't want my 20-year-old, you know, bits being played anymore.
And the other thing, comedian from Toronto, Shanti Marastika, pointed out, is that the further you go back on these galas too, the less diverse they are. Like, and the voices tend to be from
That's a good point.
middle-aged honkies, and that's kind of not the way that we're going comedically now. It's
anyway.
diverse.
So maybe let's move to sort of what happened after it sort of became clear, because there wasn't really an announcement. It was a very underground almost sort of thing where everybody's like, oh, I think everybody sort of concluded within 48 hours, okay, we understand what's happening. I'm relatively new to the comedy business, so I'm curious to hear from you two. Like, were you surprised at how the community pulled together?
No, because of how much money was on the line.
Yeah.
Right.
If it was anything else, the difference between any time comedians have tried to band together is you're talking about if you say, we're all walking off stage across the country at 5 p.m. to protest whatever, the problem is that's their paycheck, not only tonight, but it's also 6 months worth of work that they have booked.
Right.
But what they were taking away from us was money that we were already kind of counting on. You know what I mean? Like they were taking away, they had already taken something from us. So I remember we were driving to Saskatoon and I was texting with about 6 or 7 other comics.
Not while driving, though.
No.
That's
I was in the back seat. I was just anyways, I'll just keep going. So I was texting and saying, like, what are we going to do? We have to do something about this. And then I have like Canva on my phone and I made up that little black banner that said, JFL and Sirius XM are taking money out of.
Everyone's using that.
Yeah. And it was kind of funny because I was in the back seat and I sent it to you. I sent it to like a whole bunch of people and I was like, okay, are we doing this?
Yeah.
Like, are we doing it? And everybody was like, yes. And then I did it. And then I was like,
no one else.
hello? And then everybody, it's like,
how's it going out there, Erica?
Yeah.
It was everywhere.
But like social media had such a huge impact on this.
Yeah.
The way, we didn't just reach out to Just for Laughs. We reached out to Bell. We reached out to Howie Mandel. We reached out to a lot of people and they listened.
I've never seen that happen. I've never seen that work before.
And so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
To me, that was the shocking part, was just how quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, how many days was it from the point when everybody knew what had happened to the
Friday
point?
to Wednesday.
Yeah. I mean, wow.
It's incredible.
And Friday was really only a few people knew. It really didn't break in the community till midday Saturday. And I was by Wednesday so stressed out and overwhelmed and not even about like the money thing was important. I mean, I make a lot of money off Sirius, but I also, if it went away, I would be okay. I'm not going to be out on the street. But it was just the media interview, like on the phone with people. And I remember like I wanted to throw my phone off the balcony because I was like, I'm just glued to it constantly. You're just update. And I was so stressed out. And so I texted my husband. I was like, I'm turning my phone off for an hour. I need to like just relax. And so I get in the shower and I'm like, just like trying to I'm thinking of like, well, what can we do next? What's our strategy? And I get out of the shower and of course I go right to my phone. I'm like, I didn't turn it off. I just put it down. I go right to my and it's just like ping, 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 ping. And it's like, and I'm like, oh my God,
so
standing there like, and it's literally like you just like burst out crying. Like you're just like, oh my God, we did it. I cannot believe we did it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was shocking, wasn't it? I think I remember talking to you sort of right after they made the announcement and we're both just kind of like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
There was also about a 15-minute period where we weren't 100% sure it was legitimate.
Yeah.
Where it was like, if this is a prank, someone's going to
Well, the
die.
press release was worded strangely.
And they had the wrong date. So
Yeah.
that was
The
another
wrong
thing where
date.
people were like,
last
hold
year.
on,
And
pump the
the thing they
brakes.
said about, I can't remember how they phrased it, but there was one sentence independent of JFL, like the way they phrased it. And I remember I was in my office with a few people and we were all kind of like forensically kind of analyzing the sentence. Well, could it mean this? Could it mean that? it was strange. But I also wanted to say, like, as far as the Canada Laughs thing, you know, we being 604 Comedy Here Often has only been in this game for a few years. And one of the first things I did when we made the decision to do comedy was get a hold of Ben Miner, because everybody said, oh, you got to talk to Ben, So I flew to Toronto and had a meeting with him. And, you know, he was so welcoming and so excited that, you know, like, really, you're going to spend money on comedy? And, like, really, you're going to support comedy?
Yeah.
And he's been so supportive, and not like, I guess what I'm trying to say is Canada Laughs is more than just a radio station. So yes, there's the money, and yes, there's the exposure, and those are huge for up and coming, you know, comedians, huge. But it also was more than that in a way. You know, it's sort of an infrastructure, and it was kind of something to aim for, and something to rally around, and something to build around, especially with their top comic contests and everything. It really was sort of the hub of that community.
Yeah.
And so for me, it wasn't even just, oh God, financially this is horrible, and how are we going to get exposure for some of the... It was like, what now? It's like somebody had dropped a nuclear bomb, and it's like you're just sitting in the wasteland going,
Yeah.
where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine the stress that Ben was under too, because like the night that it was announced, I was seeing pictures on Facebook of everybody who went, I think, to the comedy bar in Toronto. Right. And that's one thing about it happening so early in Vancouver. Like, I'm like, it's 4:35. Like, I'm like, well, it feels, hey, everybody want to get drunk right now? But yeah, that just must have been such a relief.
There were some people that didn't perform at a JFL event too, right? That
Edmonton.
week?
Yes.
The Edmonton comedians canceled the JFL showcase.
Right.
So they all stood together and said, yeah, and they just ended up doing a show just to do a show. Like, it had nothing to do with showcasing for Montreal.
Well, it was interesting, wasn't it? I mean, the pressure was building on so many different fronts for them. And I mean, you know, how many press stories suddenly came out, like, boom, like within 48 hours, the Globe and Mail had done a story, and City TV had done a story, and
Vice,
Montreal Gazette had done a story, and Vice had done a story, and then when Howie Mandel tried to make it better and made it worse,
so much worse.
Well, let's explain what he did. So he did. Was it like a live stream?
He
Facebook?
tweeted out that he said that a lot of Canadian comedians are uninformed about what's going on. I'm going to set things straight. And then he went on Facebook Live and he confirmed literally every fear that we had. It was literally he like it was yes, that's exactly what we thought was happening, Howie.
Yeah.
And you can say it's better for us in the long run. Yeah. It's not, because taking away our money and then saying, oh yeah, but when you do get a couple of plays a month, it'll be next to a Jeff Foxworthy bit, and people will probably still be listening after the Jeff Foxworthy bit. And just it was really shitty for an ex-comedian from Canada. Yeah. And I didn't say ex-Canadian comedian, ex-comedian from Canada.
Right.
To do that to us.
Yeah.
It was a very condescending, and at the end of his video, he affected a Canadian accent and looked in the camera and said, sorry. Where it was like, that was just a spit in our face after this. Yeah.
Oh boy, I bet he didn't expect what he got from that. I mean, we could debate it, I guess, but I mean, a little bit I felt bad for him, just because my sense of it when I watched was that he wasn't fully informed. I mean, he didn't even know the name of this channel.
Yeah.
And I almost was like, I wonder if JFL just kind of said, hey, can you go on, and just kind of smooth it over, and maybe he didn't realize what he was stepping. I mean, he clearly didn't realize what he was stepping into. And I think all of a sudden his career was suddenly a little bit hanging in the balance. I mean, I saw some big comedians slamming him.
Yeah. It also never looks good if you're going to go explain to people why it's better that they don't make money when you're spinning in the grand foyer of your mansion and just pass by some, what I assume is art worth more money than I will make in possibly the rest of my life. And like, I'm just going to swing by my grand piano and like... And I do think he probably legitimately, like, they were like, we're going to do Just for Laughs radio. And like, it perhaps was never explained to him that, oh, and by doing this, we will be ceasing all of these Canadian comedians' plays, and they will lose out on X amount of money.
Yeah.
And I do kind of think that. But you are still the figurehead of Just for Laughs. That is your responsibility. And
is there branding that he's the face of it because he was a comic and everyone else?
Well, he owns a piece.
He owns a huge piece of it too. And then, so like a week before this happened, he was in Vancouver as part of the Just for Laughs Northwest Festival, and he made a speech at this event. He was like, there's some big changes coming that are going to be great for Canadian comedians. And a week later, we see what the changes are, and it was literally the worst thing that ever happened to it. And if it hadn't come back around, it would have remained forever the worst thing that ever happened to Canadian comedians since Kyle Bottom started doing stand-up comedy. I do want to pepper in a joke every once in a while.
I don't want to talk about
I love
him.
you, Kyle.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, it's funny because I guess when he was in town, he also recorded some promo clips for the Vancouver Canucks, because at the last couple of home games, at a certain point in the game, all of a sudden it's Howie Mandel's face on the big screen doing this thing about, let's make some noise. And just as a gut reaction last night, I booed. Yeah. You know, there's his face, I boo, and everybody's looking at me like, how could you have a problem with Howie Mandel?
You're like, that guy hates Bobby's World.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's funny.
But I mean, he's making these decisions about your careers. He did have that glove on his head bit, so we should probably listen to him.
Yeah.
I actually didn't even know he was Canadian. And I didn't know he owned part of JFL. Is it other comics also who own JFL?
No, I think he was
ICM and him, right?
And
Bell Media.
Bell Media.
Bell Media is the majority owner, I believe.
I think CBC owns like 1% or something. I remember looking on and this is from Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
But it was like Bell Media, ICM, and then CBC was like 1%. I was like, well, they're not worth really going after in this. They don't really have any responsibility here.
Right.
Oh boy. Well, I met Howie Mandel backstage at AGT when Carly Rae Jepsen performed on it.
Okay.
So that's got to be 7 years ago, and sat with him. He was very pleasant. I mean, which doesn't mean he's.
Yeah.
I mean, people can be pleasant. That doesn't mean they're actually nice. But, I didn't get any, shitty vibe from the guy at all. That's why I have a funny feeling.
He doesn't know.
He just probably wasn't fully informed about.
Right.
Because you'd have to be a moron.
Yeah.
To walk into that like that. And I don't think he's a moron.
No.
But, I don't know. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, he's probably not the one making the business decisions. That's why I was asking if he's the face of it, because he's actually a comedian. As opposed to the other guys.
When Rosen, right? That's how you pronounce the guy's name that stepped down, the head of Just for Laughs.
Gilbert.
Yeah. And then, so when ICM, whoever stepped in to kind of save it was all Howie Mandel in the press and stuff. So I don't know that he's officially the face of it, but it's certainly they're using, Canadian comedian comes home, does good, saves Just for Laughs, and then...
Yeah, and whatever you want to say
follow-up
about him,
story.
It's not, he certainly doesn't have a menacing sort of, he's like a smiley, happy-go-lucky kind of guy.
Yeah, like a Cosby type, right. I was thinking,
ouch.
Yeah. I kid, of course. I wonder who's still watching, and I hope that they got some chuckles at some points.
Yeah.
The thing that I thought was great was just how that we all, comedians of every level of stature in Canada, except for one, came together, and we're all people who were on the Howie Mandel. Deanne Smith was on the Howie Mandel and Friends show a week before, and she tweeted a picture of the two of them together to get his attention and said, listen, here's what's going on, and this isn't cool. And
well, I got to think at a certain point he must have been he probably went back to Just for Laughs and said, look, you got to make this right.
Yeah.
I mean,
1,200 Canadian people are telling me they wish I got sneezed on Twitter right now. Yeah. Can we do something about this?
Yeah. Well, you have to imagine too, he's the face of Bell Media's Let's Talk campaign.
Right. Oh.
Now, and I had tweeted at Bell extensively about what the effect of losing essentially half or even more for some comics, their livelihood was going to have on their mental health. And it would have, and as much as you say, good thing no one killed them, it is devastating for anyone when they lose their livelihood, not just comics, anyone, when you go into work and they're like, you no longer have a job, and
without warning.
And without warning was a big thing too, because
no time to prepare,
if they had said, I do wonder if they had said, like, in 6 months this is happening, would there have been such a quick call to action? Maybe not, but just already looking on, and it's so on Dogstar Radio you can go see all the plays. Now 2 weeks ago I went. Apparently the site is down, but I thought it was a weird coincidence that it happened, because I became semi-obsessive with checking, like, just once a week or whenever, a couple times a day, just like pop in, and then, you go and you're like, oh, good, last week I got this many plays. And then I put my name in and it was like 0. And I was like, gulp.
January 23rd was the last day they started putting them up, and people noticed that. And then some folks were tweeting to Howie saying January 23rd, and I was like, hold on, I think the site might be down.
Yeah, I tweeted something.
We don't want to go after with the wrong info.
Who runs that site? I always find that site mysterious. Like,
I don't know, but they do have a donation button, which I had never taken advantage of, and maybe I should have, because
it's a very glitchy sort of site. But
it's called Dogstar.
Dogstar Radio.
Yeah, you literally can punch in a comic or a song or a musician, and it'll say which stations played it, how many times, blah blah blah. Yeah. It's great. I mean, when it's working, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Dogstar is Keanu Reeves' band, so I'm wondering
that's
if
true.
yeah.
Sirius is the Dogstar.
Oh.
Kevvy, how much do we have to educate you in this podcast?
It's tough being so stupid.
Can we? Yeah.
Eric, I need your help.
Another thing I found interesting, and I was finding this more from the American comedians who were chiming in, which was really amazing to me. I mean, my God, what interest do they have in this other than just trying to be supportive? But the one thing I thought was interesting was that a lot of people were mischaracterizing it as CanCon versus non-CanCon, which to my mind was never the issue at all. No. Because a lot of that JFL stuff, the old stuff, is CanCon. It was really more about the corporatization of comedy in Canada, and sort of like, who has the right to be on that station? Is it corporate interests or is it independent comics? And how are we going to develop independent comics if that station is gone?
Yeah.
So interesting. Like, I don't know how it turned into CanCon versus non-CanCon, but certainly in my mind, that was never, ever, ever the issue.
No. And then people arguing, well, because it was recorded in Canada by Canadian recording engineers, it's like, no, fuck off with that. It's a comedy channel. It's not a channel to showcase our great recording engineers, of which we have many. I'm not trying to get on the bad side of the recording engineers.
Yeah.
Well, vengeful they can be.
Yeah. Kevin's just muted for the rest of the thing.
Probably for the best.
And another thing that I think needs to be brought up is that Canadian comics have a very distinct voice. Yeah. Like, look at all of the great comics that we have exported, some of, and the comics that have stayed in Canada. Kyle Bottom.
Oh.
Huh? Look what I did there. I love you, Kyle. It's all him. So that we also, the Canadian public, we hadn't quite rallied them onto our side, but I was going to start.
Yeah.
They also, you don't want to just hear American comics. There's 6 other channels that you can hear that.
Yeah, totally.
You want to hear the voices from your own country, from things that, like Canadians reference that you also know about.
And that are current.
Yeah, and that are current.
Yeah. This country has great stand-up comedy. I'm in Los Angeles a lot, and I'll go see friends of ours on LA bills, and they wipe the floor with them a lot. It's the talent in this country is incredible, and a lot of American comedians do know that, and so it should have its own station and voice.
Well, maybe we can seg just into sort of the post. So that happens. Now the station's back. Are you feeling safe?
No. I don't. Not to be cynical, but that's me. Is that I'm concerned. I'm not like uneasy about it, but I am concerned for the future. Is that they came for the money once? What's going to stop them from coming again? Just with a better PR plan around it to make it look like they're not doing something so.
They've already got the name. So.
Villainous, but
I wonder why they didn't just take a different channel.
I mean, yeah, that's.
I mean, I don't understand the ins and outs of that. There might be regulatory issues. Like, I don't know, but it's funny, right? I mean, don't they have unlimited numbers of channels?
That's what I thought. Like this, what they changed this into could have been like JFL Classics or something, and then they could have left Canada Laughs as it was. You know,
and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. This might just have been an easy, like, oh, this is easier.
Yeah.
I never got to the point. Yeah.
Is there wrong about that?
Yeah. Sorry. It was not easier.
You know, I know for me, and again, I'm a neophyte in this, but you know, I know for me, probably the big lesson. I mean, to me, this is just one big cautionary tale, and the one thing it definitely made me think was, you know, if the infrastructure of the Canadian comedy scene, the independent scene, is so fragile that one station making a programming change can bring it all down. Boy, that tells me that people need to figure out another way to find ways to expose and monetize recorded comedy content. Because if it's all about one station, I mean, look how fragile that all was. One decision made by a couple of people in a corporate office, and we're worried about people killing themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. And that, you know, that's why, and I'm not going to make this a commercial for Comedy Here Often, but, you know, that's why as a small step, and it's a small step, you know, we decided to open up the Comedy Here Often channel to third-party content. Because I think everybody's kind of got an obligation now to sort of help each other find alternative ways to help each other and expose, you know, find a place where you can get exposure and get paid. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's the answer. We're one YouTube channel. But, I mean, anybody have any thoughts about other ways this can go?
I took all the serious money that I had when this announcement came back and bought Scratch and Wins. And now that I think about it, it wasn't the smartest idea. But no, it was a real, you know, I was talking to my good friend Jennifer Grant, and we talk about our, you know, we always call each other when our serious numbers come out. How much was your check? How much was your check? We're very good friends. And so I was like, this is literally such a godsend that if one day someone said it's going away, I'd be like, oh, of course. It was ridiculous that it happened in the first place. But then when it happened, like it going away and into someone else's pocket, I was like, oh, no, not so fast. I actually guess I do care. But I think it was a really good kind of lesson for every comic to, you know, to look at different, you know, you have to diversify in this business. And I think more and more comics are getting into self-producing shows and doing things like that. And, you know, as I often talk to comics about taxes and financial, put some away for the future, everybody. Put some away for a rainy day.
It's good advice.
Yeah.
A little bit better than the Scratch and Win advice.
It's never gonna rain. What are you talking about? We're going to live forever.
God.
Questions?
I don't understand
people
how
send
that
in
thing-
questions?
I don't quite understand how it works either. I think people can ask questions.
Oh,
but
wow.
Let's see. Oh. Yes, I'm really that good looking.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding. I don't understand this, so fuck it.
Okay. What do you think, Banner, about sort of the future of this stuff? Like, it just seems like he said, if the rug was pulled once, it could happen again, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it's just, there's such great talent in this country, and it's kind of unappreciated in some ways in other parts of the world, that I would like to see more content coming out of this area. And,
Yeah.
you know.
I don't know what the answer is. I'm a dummy from the woods, so I was thrilled to be making this money this way. But I don't know what the answer is. I'll support whoever is smart enough to come up with some answers, though.
Just gesturing at Erica.
Yeah. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It was a wake up call, though, that there is more that we need to be doing. It's just a matter of what and who leads the charge.
Probably Kyle Bottom, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
I can't imagine.
Well, sure. If nothing else, it seems like it's really woken up the whole community. And boy, there's a lot of... And I'm happy about this. Post all of this happening, like in the last 5 days, lots of emails from all sorts of people across the country.
Yeah.
sort of saying, what do we do? What do we do? So at least that's the right question to ask.
Yeah.
What now? Where do we go? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again?
This
How do
woke
we
up a lot
expand?
of people.
Yes.
And it made people start looking at other things in the way that we've just accepted as this is a part of the game, where it's like, well, does it have to be?
Yeah.
Just because it's always been that way doesn't mean it has to stay that way. So
Totally.
be interesting to see what happens in the next little bit here.
I think we should mention the Canadian Association of Stand-Up Comics,
Yeah.
who are working out of Toronto, who are lobbying and trying to work towards different goals and getting us recognized as an art for grant money. And so, if anyone out there who's a comedian joins and
Yeah.
can commit to contributing $5 a month or
Right.
whatever, so they can continue that work, because I think some of them, to get the lobbyists to go into Parliament went into their own pockets to fund that. So
Wow. That's one thing I feel like there should be a change with is SOCAN. I feel like comedians should be able to register their bits with SOCAN.
SOCAN, for those who don't know, is the sort of the equivalent of Sound Exchange, but on the song side, as opposed to the master recording side.
Mm-hmm.
And as of right now, SOCAN only monetizes songs, musical compositions, not.
Right.
It's interesting, though, because, I'm a lawyer, so I think the way you would properly characterize a comedy routine is a literary work. It's a literary work. And right now there is no public performance money for literary works. Because remember, Sound Exchange you're not getting the money for your routine.
Writing, yeah.
You're getting the money for the master recording being performed.
Right.
And I think that's an area where absolutely, if there was some way of trying to lobby, it would be amazing, because that would open up another revenue stream, especially since there seems to be more comedy, like terrestrial comedy stations opening.
Yeah.
There's one in Toronto. Was it Laugh 680 or whatever?
Yeah, we
There's
just
the
saw one in Calgary. Yeah.
And from what I'm hearing, there's going to be more of them.
Okay.
Because, right now I think comedians would be open for neighboring rights royalties, which is sort of like Sound Exchange. I'm not going to get into all the boring, but that's another thing for comedians you might want to look into, is registering with ACTRA for neighboring rights royalties. Because that, I believe, is how you would get paid by terrestrial radio when they play your stuff on their stations.
Right. Like neighboring means outside of the country.
No, neighboring rights, I got to be honest, it's one of those phrases in law that's confusing even to me. I think it really was more a reference to the fact that song public performance royalties came first.
Right.
Like those organizations, like in the U.S., ASCAP, BMI, they've been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then they considered the master recording part a derivative of the song.
Okay.
Hence neighboring. Like neighboring, it's the neighbor to the song.
Okay.
Right? So, but neighboring rights royalties could be huge. Like for musicians, it's huge.
Yeah.
They considered the master.
I just hit the button on our record.
Was that my voice?
That was your
That freaked me
voice.
out.
That was,
Do I really sound like that? Gross.
I was just looking to see,
That's
make
it.
sure
I'll never
people
speak
were
again
listening.
now that I know what I sound like.
Turns out there was no audio to start the broadcast. That's why I got some messages. I wanted to double check that it was on now.
Got it figured out though.
Yeah. Thanks, Ivan.
Oh, is Ivan watching?
Yes.
Decky.
Hi, Ivan.
Hi, Ivan.
hi, Ivan.
Hi, Kyle. He's not watching.
No.
Okay. Anything else in closing that we want to talk about to do with all this and what we hope happens or what did happen? Anything we've forgotten?
Well, I just hope people don't fall back into the channel's back. Now we have nothing to worry about. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't feel like that's going to happen. I think that was such a wake up call, and people were so freaked out that I'm not sensing that at all. In fact, I'm almost sensing in the last few days an increase in people emailing me to kind of go, "Hey, can you help us with this? Can you help us with that?" Including the organization,
Task.
right? Who which is really nice. I mean, I don't really feel like a central part of the comedy community, and that was really nice. They kind of reached out and kind of like, look, we loved what you were saying. We really appreciate it, and let's try and make this more solid, and let's try and really build on this.
Yeah.
So that's, for me, that's the lesson here, is that we do have to build on this, and we do have to figure out how to make sure this doesn't happen again. Not just in the sense of that channel, but in the sense of being so reliant on that channel.
Right.
There's got to be other ways of bringing in income and getting exposure than just one channel on
Yeah.
a
Satellite
Sirius.
channel, yeah.
Yeah, and if there's somebody out there that has a ton of money that wants to start another Canadian comedy channel, I mean, why not?
Yeah,
right?
if there's a guy from a band, Nickelback or Nickelback.
Carly Rae Jepsen band.
Yeah, one of these types. One of the I've got an arena in my basement types out there.
Yes.
Come together. Let's do something.
I'll
Just
talk to Uncle Chad. I'll
Thank
see
you.
Yeah.
what he's if he's got a spare 100 million lying around to.
He might in that hockey rink at his house. Actually, I do have one more question for you two.
yeah.
Comedy Mix may be going, right?
Yes, it sounds
So
like that.
means that there's only one major comedy club in Vancouver now.
And word is that it might be going too. So, whoa, there's all sorts of fun shit coming
Yeah.
I
down.
know that.
Somebody said the other day that they saw that Yuck Yucks might be losing that location. So,
Okay.
But they would have presumably opened somewhere else.
in theory, but who knows? Yeah, but the comedy mix in Vancouver. So it was like a real dog shit couple of weeks
I
there
know.
for
Yeah.
Vancouver comics, where we're losing. Many of us are losing our club and this sound exchange thing. So
I signed up for Athabasca University. I'm not going to lie to you. I just late one night in Regina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What could I take? I'm
Yeah.
going to be, what am I going to be?
I started
don't know.
sharpening my knives. I think I might be a butcher.
I bet I know what mall you were in Regina, because there really is only one mall.
The Cornwall.
Yep,
Cornwall
that's the one.
Center.
Yep.
Beautiful Cornwall
Were
Center.
you in the food court up on the second floor there?
Oh gosh, I despise food courts. I was.
Why?
I just. It's.
Now it's getting interesting.
It's
that one's
so
not a falafel place that isn't horrible.
okay. They also have a freshie, which I have been known to get a juice at. It's just you go into a food court and it's like all these bad versions of international food, and the people sitting in the food court just don't look like people that have ever been on a plane. I just hate the whole thing.
You're listening to Mall Talk live from 604 Studios.
Its own podcast.
No, that's a funny mall though. Because I travel, Canada every summer, and I always make a stop in
Are
Regina.
we still talking
about the mall? We are.
Cornwall Mall?
Yeah.
Good mall. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much for watching and listening, especially Kyle Bottom.
Yeah, somebody tell that
Yeah.
dunce to tune in.
And actually, quick shout out to Kyle Bottom.
Quick shout out to Kyle Bottom.
Cow Bottom, I love you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
All right, now these cameras are off. Let's really talk some shit about people. Oh!